Hello Audioholics, thanks for joining us again. Today we have a real treat. It's the RSL Speedwoofer 10S, brand new, hot off the factory line. And what makes this so unique is that they have positioned this to be a super competitive subwoofer at only $399. It is a 10-inch subwoofer, and if you take the grill off, immediately one of the first things you notice is that this has a heavy-duty rubber surround. It is built for high excursion, and just by looking at this subwoofer, looking at the driver, you can tell this thing means business. What you can't tell from the outside, but we'll show you a picture, is that this driver also is set in a cast basket. A cast basket means that it is far more rigid than a stamped basket. It's able to handle higher pressure levels. It is able to operate more distortion-free at high volume levels, and it is simply something that you don't usually see in a $400 subwoofer. The fact that RSL was able to put a cast basket in their subwoofer at $400 is very impressive. Now, the RSL Speedwoofer 10 is also a fairly compact system, despite being a vented subwoofer. Usually, if you have any sort of porter vent, the box dimensions tend to be pretty large. In this case, we're only looking at about 15, 16 inches, no matter which way you go. And so it's comparable in size to sealed woofers while still offering you a little bit more output towards the low end of its range, as is typical with a ported or vented subwoofer. Let me spin this around. We'll take a look at the back. So one of the things that you'll probably notice is that we have almost every feature you should expect out of a full-featured subwoofer. Rotary controls for level, for crossover, for phase, as well as a defeat switch for that internal crossover. Line level inputs and outputs, so you can daisy chain multiples of these. We'll talk more about that later. Speaker level inputs in case you're running these without a receiver that has a subwoofer output or a built-in line level output. And then one thing that you don't see on the back of this, it's kind of a hidden little secret. It all relates to this box right here. Wireless audio transmitter. I mentioned this is a $400 subwoofer. For an extra $50, you get this little guy. It connects up to your audio video receiver and sends your sub signal wirelessly, so you're not running that long cable from where your sub is set up to where your receiver is set up. And so you're saying, okay, well, if this goes to the audio video receiver, where's the other one, the one that plugs into the subwoofer? It's baked in. It's built into every one of the Speedwoofer 10S's. And so that is one less dongle, one less power cord to run some of these solutions. They look a little added on. So what you're getting is a full-featured wireless solution if you choose to go that route, but you're not having any extra complexity on the back of the subwoofer itself. So one of the best things about a $400 subwoofer is that if you want to run two, and at Audioholics we always want to run multiple subwoofers, it's not going to cost you a lot of cash to do that. And so that's exactly what we did in our test environment. I got one subwoofer here, and that's actually belongs in the corner over on my right side, and then one that's positioned over in this corner. So we ran two subs, one in each front corner, and based on our experience with these, the way I would characterize the sound of these subwoofers is that they are super punchy. They hit you in the chest with that bass impact. We were very fortunate to have some test results come in from Brent Butterworth, and Brent is an excellent reviewer. If you haven't checked out his stuff, I strongly encourage you to do that. And Brent's CEA 2010 test results indicated that based on our Audioholics formula, we could rate these subwoofers easily as medium room subwoofers. And they are that close to getting our large room rating. The fact that you can do that with a $400 subwoofer is outstanding. And when you run these in multiples, you're looking at 3 to 6 decibels typically of increased headroom. And so as a result, a pair of these are probably going to land us right in that large room rating. And then you get the added benefit also of the more even bass response across your room. So going with two less expensive yet fully capable, fully outfitted subwoofers makes a lot of sense sometimes over going with just a single sub. So moving on to listening, I wanted to see what these little babies could do with some Hollywood movie content. Fired up the latest in the, I suppose it's a quadrilogy now, the Hunger Games series, Mockingjay Part 2. Great explosions there, mediocre movie, but that's a review for a different time. What it did give us an opportunity to do is test out what these subwoofers are really capable of with high dynamic range content. Now, I'm going to be a little joking here. These subwoofers are only rated down to 24 hertz. That's at -3 decibels, however, and keep in mind that's a $400 subwoofer that digs all the way down to 24 hertz. Really? And you also do still get some usable response down all the way to your to your 20 hertz, sort of the lowest accepted threshold of human hearing, especially when you double these things up in pairs. And so overall, that same character, that bass slam, hits you in the chest character that makes those movie explosions feel real, gives you that visceral home theater experience. These Speedwoofer 10S's were able to provide that. But all that bass and slam is for nothing if they're not also articulate when it comes to music. So anybody that's watched my reviews knows that I'm a huge fan of a band called My Brightest Diamond. And I fired up one of my standard tracks. It's Be Brave off of their album All Things Will Unwind. Now, one of the characteristics about that song is that it has this persistent thumping kick drum. And this is an organic kick drum as opposed to something that might sound a little artificially hyped up or might even be synthetic. This is something that is designed to sound like a drum with character in a room with character. It sounds like a real instrument, real physical objects hitting one another. And you need an articulate, fast, defined sub to really capture that and not make it sound too synthetic. And what I found about the Speedwoofer 10S is despite being able to handle that high impact movie environment, they were also excellent at not only delivering the weight, but delivering the character of organic instruments as well. So while I was listening to that track, I really got a sense of that drum being in the room, being a real instrument. Of course, there's nothing wrong with synthetic bass, and one of my other favorite tracks is Bjork's Hyper Ballad. It has these 3 frequencies that are synthed up almost in a sine wave style, and it's really just a fun track for seeing how much throbbing bass you can put into your room. And it's really a torture test for a lot of subwoofers as to whether or not they can hit the headroom that's demanded by these big heavy bass lines. And the Speedwoofer 10S, especially in a dual configuration, were able to do exactly that. They did not shy away from those high dynamic range, heavy bass lines at all in Hyper Ballad. If you can't tell, at Audioholics, we are really excited at having the RSL Speedwoofer 10S hitting the market because it is a full-on real subwoofer. You've got a heavy-duty rubber surround and a cast basket driver. You've got a solid vented enclosure. You've full-featured across the inputs and the outputs, all the way including that built-in wireless as an option. I mean, this is a real good recommendation for folks that are just starting off in home theater and only have a little bit of money to spend on their low end, but still want something that's going to carry them through for years and years. It's even a good solution for folks that have a little bit more money and maybe they're thinking about a single $800 subwoofer. Well, for $800 you get a pair of these. You get all the benefits of multiple subs and you still have a pretty small footprint for each one. And so I would say that even those folks that are thinking about a single $800 subwoofer need to give a real look to the RSL Speedwoofer 10S and ask themselves if maybe multiple subs wouldn't yield some serious advantages. So there you have it, the RSL Speedwoofer 10S. The finish may not be the most luxurious, it may not have a fancy curb cabinet, but where it counts, the drivers, the electronics, the features, this thing delivers. The most bang for your buck that you can get for $400 is looking like it's going to be led by the folks at RSL. Thanks for tuning in. You can catch us all the time at youtube.com/audioholics. Make sure you're subscribing if you haven't already. Hit that button right now. Also catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/audioholics, as well, of course, the home zone, audioholics.com. That's where we list all of our latest articles, our in-depth reviews, and every video that we throw up as well. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, keep listening.